growing a business is obviously it's really difficult, and we've cancelled numerous holidays. We've had loads of things that got in the way of life because our business has come just first for so much of the time, and it's actually working together, I think, has made the whole thing tolerable.
Matthew Mills, CEO of Deliciously Ella, the plant-based brand which started as a personal blog by Ella Mills and has now evolved into an app, recipe books, a restaurant, a range of some 40-something food products, I believe, and a podcast with 25 million downloads.
Ella and I actually met right after her first book came out in January of 2015, and we started dating a couple of weeks after it had come out, and everything had moved very quickly in our relationship. We moved into with each other after a week. We bought a dog after about 6 weeks, and I still believe this to this day, that much more so than, we're not a restaurant or an FMCG business or an app or a cookery book. At our absolute core, we are a plant-based food and wellness company, and that is what Ella had started.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. Now, I read that back in May 2015, you and your wife Ella went for a walk with each other, and by the end of that walk, you decided you wanted to start a business together. And the first thing that you wanted to start, so ultimately wanted to start, was a restaurant. Can you take me back to that time in 2015? What were you doing work-wise personally? And what memories have you got from that conversation?
Sure, yeah. So Ella and I actually met right after her first book came out in January of 2015, and we started dating a couple of weeks after it had come out, and everything had moved very quickly in our relationship. We moved into with each other after a week. We bought a dog after about 6 weeks, and we went for a walk in, I think, May or June of 2015, and we just started discussing. I had been working in finance, but had very itchy feet and wanted to leave, and it was just so clear that there was a business opportunity here to do something between us. And Ella had built this amazing community of people through her recipe website, and the book had really taken the brand from being what was an online community into something that was offline and being spoken about in the press. And it just was starkly clear to us that there was a business opportunity, and we felt like we could combine what felt like some skill sets then. Looking back, I'm not sure if we had too many skill sets between us, but we've been on a great journey of acquiring those. But it just felt that there was an obvious opportunity there, and we went on and we got back from that walk, and I decided I'd quit my job and that we would start trying to do something together.
And that was the first time you'd had that conversation about starting business together?
Yeah, it really was. I think that our relationship had moved incredibly fast. There was a lot happening in our world at the time, and that was the first time we really decided it. But it was a 1 or 2 hour walk, and it was crystal clear in our minds when we got back from it that we should do something together. And
at that point in time, what did Deliciously Ella look like as a business? We talked briefly offline about that it was a brand before it was a business, but what did it kind of look like business-wise, with your CEO hat on now, like revenue-wise?
Yeah, sure. So it was, it wasn't really a business as such. It had, the first book had just come out, so there was revenues being generated from that. I think the social media following, I think Ella had about 320,000 or so followers on Instagram, so a lot smaller than now. I think the revenue of the business in 2015 was about £250,000, including all of the revenues from the book. So it was Ella doing stuff personally, really. It was everything that was being done was driven through the activities that Ella was doing, i.e. the book, and any brand ambassadorships that she was doing at the time. But it wasn't, I would say, a kind of business as such like we are today.
Interesting. And when you met, what did the vision look like that Ella had for the brand herself, and how did you go about joining forces and turning that into reality? Because, as I mentioned in the intro, pretty substantial food products range. The subscription app is, I didn't realise how many subscribers you got, but it's like close to 200,000 or something crazy. Amazing. Recipe books, deli, now restaurant. So how did you, what was the vision like, and how did you go about joining forces and turning that into reality?
The great thing was that we were and I still believe this to this day, that much more so than we're not a restaurant or an FMCG business or an app or a cookery book. At our absolute core, we are a plant-based food and wellness company, and that is what Ella had started. And it was then just deciding about what kind of activities we could go into that we thought would be most useful for consumers, and how we could continue to build community around those, and how we could be something that would be genuinely useful for people's lives. And the first thing that we decided to do was to open a physical space. So we opened this very, very small cafe on a pretty remote street, and it was a kind of experiment, really, just to see how the brand could live as a commercial entity. And I think we were surprised by the level of excitement that we initially got for that, and I think it really compelled us to believe that there was just so much more that could be done with this. And so I think we were both clear, and I knew when we started working with each other, we didn't want this to be a kind of small lifestyle business. We wanted it to be something that we could really, really grow. Mm-hmm. And it became very clear to us very, very quickly that the way to really grow this business would be, one, through food products, which we launched our food product in August of 2016. We're now in about 6,000 shops in the UK, and it's been a really amazing journey with that. And then the other way that we could do it is through trying to find ways that we could monetize our content. So Ella is an absolute genius at creating content, and the way that we've been able to monetize that is through our app, where we have 800 plant-based recipes, we have 250 exercise videos, we have 200 bits of other mindfulness and sleep content. It's a really great holistic health tool.
I find a lot of that really, really interesting. what you said, that I'll probably come back to, and I love that idea, of the, building that community, and then finding out, what that community actually needs, and how you can supply solutions to the problems that community has. Was a lot of that like crowdsourcing, asking them what they wanted, or was the vision that you both had together pretty strong then, and it's kind of mirrored in what you're doing now? Yeah,
I think when we were starting out, it was probably more done on feeling, whereas what we can do now is, I think, much more based on facts, because we've got much better data sets and much more data that we're able to use. At the start, it was more done on the basis of what had been really popular on social media. What were we anecdotally finding that people were cooking the most, or seemed to be most interested in? And so but then also which categories. So for example, when we were launching our food products business, which category did we think was the best place for us to launch a food business into? And we decided that was snacking. So so that was the way it started about at the start, and I would say that there was a kind of priority on action over great strategy at that point. But I think as the business has grown, and as we've been able to make using data a really key skill within the business, I think that's obviously shifted a lot.
How much of the decisions you make are based in data? Because I remember chatting to the CEO of Graze, and he was saying at the time that they just expanded into the US, and they'd got 100,000 subscribers within 30 days, or something crazy like that. But they could turn around the new product in 24 hours, wow. Which is like, it's kind of like jaw-dropping, really, in how they could turn that around. But how much are you led by data, and how much, now obviously the business has expanded considerably over the last 5-6 years, but how much is based on data, and how much is still on, gut instinct, or the communities kind of leading the questions?
Yeah, we're still, I feel like as a company, we're still completely community led. But we, as the business has grown, we've definitely been able to get much more useful data around what we think would work. So when we were first starting out, we didn't have the budgets to be able to invest into till data, so understanding actually how a product was performing in store. And our app is a relatively new evolution of the business, and so we now have great data where we really believe that the content that we're adding there and the services that we're adding there are things that we know our users really, really want, and we can see the way that they're using the app. And so I'd say it's definitely something that, as the business grown, has been something that we've got much, much, much better at. But still, it's not perfect.
No, it just popped into my head because it's really, really interesting. And I've chatted to Alan Barrett a few times. He's become a friend of mine, founder of Grenade, and the chocolate, they turned that protein bar into a chocolate bar, very obviously marketing led into what they did there. But, he kind of drilled down into the decision they made with that. He said that the whole board was against it. They all ruled it out. And he said, I just went off and I just got 1,000 made, or 10,000, I think, like a 10,000 production run. And he said they went in 24 hours and I went behind the board's back to get it done. And I just knew that it was going to be successful. And now they got like the #1 chocolate bar in the UK. So
no, sometimes you do just know it. And sometimes the most difficult decisions are when what the data's showing, but what you really, really believe, when those things contradict each other, that's when the really difficult decisions have to be made. And I think there's lots of businesses where the data of today may be saying something, but as a leader of the business, you have to have an eye on tomorrow as well, and you may be seeing something beyond just what today's data is showing that means you feel like you need to make a change of some kind. We've had that in our business for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned before as well that when you got together as a couple and you went into business together, the business model was a lifestyle brand. And I always remember chatting to Julian Hearn from Huel, and him saying he sold a business, launched this new business, Huel, and he'd set it out. He didn't want to employ anybody. He just wanted it to be a lifestyle business. Because at the end of year one, I'd done 750,000 in revenue, and I knew it wasn't going to be a lifestyle business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's these when you really, I think, solve a consumer need, the growth can become very quick, very fast. So, yeah.
And that decision, going back to go into business together, interested to know feedback from family and friends. Was there any?
Yeah, so I'm not a very impulsive person. I think I'm a decisive person, but I'm not an impulsive person. And I think that you could, my immediate fondness of Ella, I think you could probably chalk down to decisiveness, as I think it was reciprocated from her. But I think that when we decided to move in together after a week, and then we decided to buy a dog after 6 or 7 weeks, and then start a business, I think we were getting some funny looks about is this kind of crazy impulsiveness that's driving this. But we felt we knew what we were doing. We just celebrated, actually just last week we had the 7th anniversary of our first date, and so we're still hanging in there.
Amazing.
2 little girls at home, which is yes, we're still going strong.
I saw that. I thought I'm at the other end of the spectrum. My 2 girls are 13 and about to become 15, so It's like another universe that I'm inhabiting right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah, gives me anxiety when the thoughts of it.
and so it should.
Yeah.
And the dog has his own Instagram channel now.
Yeah, so I was actually I was doing some with that. It's kind of been slightly retired. I was actually looking at starting a dog food business, and so I was definitely a big fan of trying to build community and then try and find useful product services that we could provide for that community. And so I was looking at doing something in dog food, but it wasn't able to work out.
I chatted to other couples who've been in business together, and grenades spring to mind because I've interviewed them both separately, like Alan and Juliet. Did you set out early doors what your roles were going to look like, or did that just evolve because it seemed to happen pretty damn quickly?
Yeah, I think that when we first started, we both did everything because we had to. I mean, when we opened our first cafe, I was working. I was on the coffee machine. Ella was on the till so that she could talk to customers. I was clearing plates. It was all hands on deck. But I think that from the kind of actual more beyond the on the coalface operating, from the actual business, we do such incredibly different things. We have interest in such different things. Ella is absolutely amazing at content. She is amazing at building community. She is obviously been incredibly successful with her books, whereas my interest and my skill set, and where we do very different things, is much more on the kind of classic business side of things, just operating a business. And that's why I think we've just been so fortunate that we were able to come together, not just as people in our personal lives, but then to be able to complement each other in our professional lives by doing things that enable one another, support one another, with completely different skill sets in that. So we really don't get that involved in each other's thing at work. It feels relatively separate in that because we do such incredibly different things. Right.
And any demarcation lines at home, at weekends?
No, I think it becomes laughable now, but when we first started, we were like, let's not talk about work at home, and then obviously that lasts about 2 minutes. And so we still now, I mean, I just mentioned that we had our 7th anniversary of our first date. We ended up speaking about team structure and some international launches and some news that I had on those things. And so work is never far away.
It's funny because I catch myself all the time. Just come back from skiing holiday, and you just catch yourself over dinner talking about like my business to her, and you suddenly have to just think, hang on a minute, she's actually interested in listening to me talk again about.
It's honestly, it's been, I mean, growing a business is obviously it's really difficult, and we've cancelled numerous holidays. We've had loads of things that got in the way of life because our business has come just first for so much of the time, and it's actually working together, I think, has made the whole thing tolerable, because I think if I was taking someone else and I started a business and was running it, had to cancel 6 holidays in our first 2 years of going out, I think that person probably would have lost patience pretty quickly. Whereas there's a deep understanding given we're both in it together.
And you talked about it being difficult to run a business, to grow a business. How did the pandemic affect the business? I've read before you shut the deli down there, for example, and so many shops shut down during the pandemic, but equally you then opened a restaurant. So so a bit of a longer story, but before I started the kind of commercial side up at Deliciously Ella, when I was actually working in finance, I was involved in a business that we were trying to get off the ground in West Africa, where I had a friend who had started a social enterprise down there, and we had tried to start a commercial business down there in food and farming, and we had been on the cusp. I invested money, I'd had friends who had invested money. We were on the cusp of raising a large amount of money, and Ebola hit, and all of the capital from us was pulled. And so we were a pure play business where with Ebola there was absolutely no way to turn it. It was a disaster. So actually, by design, when we started our business, I always wanted our business to have quite diversified cash flow. So I never wanted us to be a pure play business that could be knocked over by something, even if we were operating in the UK instead of West Africa, which is obviously very different environments to be in. So as a result, when COVID hit, and it's one thing that it shows from huge failures and heartbreak, some good can come out of it, that I think our business was really well positioned for COVID because we had really diversified business activity. So whereas our restaurant, or what used to be our cafe, now our restaurant, that was closed basically for 18 months, and of course had no revenue, but we had some ongoing bills for that. Our app in that time, because people were cooking at home and exercising at home, did incredibly well. Our food products, whereas a bulk of our volume was going through single serve snacking, which people completely collapsed because people weren't walking down the high street. Our breakfast cereals, our larger take-home format packs in our food products business did really, really well. So overall, despite everything that happened, our business stayed in double-digit growth, which we were really, really proud of. That is amazing. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
And that decision to create different products seems an obvious one now, looking back, seeing your products on the shelves of like our local Waitrose. We're getting like granola and energy balls when I do my long distance runs at the weekend and things like that. But how easy a decision was it back in, I think you said like 2016, was it?
Yeah.
And what kind of stringent process do you have every time somebody comes up with an idea for a new product?
Yeah, so ideas have come from different places. Sometimes it will be, Ella will have 2 different bits of food and she'll be putting them together, and I'll have a twinge that could be a food product. Sometimes it comes from just a recipe that Ella's created that we think could be a food product. Sometimes there will be some kind of new category data that we think there's an interesting opportunity for us. So they really come about in very different ways, but the one thing that we've been absolutely sure about is that we didn't want to be a pure play business even within our products business. So we didn't just want to be a snacking company. We felt like because our brand has been formed in content, we've published over 2,000 plant-based recipes since Ella started our recipe website. We feel like we should be playing across categories. So we have a range of breakfast cereals, we have multiple different snacking products, we have a range of soups, a range of cooking sauces, a range of frozen desserts, and we really like the ability to play across category. We feel like it aids the overall brand.
And can you remember which was the first one?
Yes, our energy balls were the first product that we launched.
I thought it was. I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we launched those into Whole Foods in August of 2016, and our second customer ever was Starbucks, which is just mad.
Was that?
Thinking about it, yeah. It was.
Wow.
I sat there guessing I looked up who the UK MD was, and I just started guessing what his email address could be, and one of the emails got through, and he responded to me about 10 minutes later, and then we went for a meeting with him the following week and got a listing, and we were just kind of literally couldn't believe it. So,
I bet. Yeah. Isn't it funny that the emails are quite often so obvious as well, like Richard at virgin.com or something like that. It literally is, isn't it? Always like.
Yeah, it's funny.
And what kind of process do you have now? And I was thinking back to the grenade story where nobody was like, actually did any testing or anything like that. But do you have a process like that where you get the community involved with?
Yeah, so we do some consumer testing. We'll do some stuff in our restaurant. We'll do some stuff just within kind of wider team members, friends and family, so they're not so directly linked to us. And then we'll just do various kind of consumer panels and surveys and stuff. Yeah.
And how confident were you that the community would go out and buy the products? Uber confident?
I mean, I think as much as we could be, I felt like it would be one thing to get them to go buy it once, but how do we get them coming back time and time again? And ultimately that just comes down to how good a product can we launch. And so I was pretty confident when we first launched that would happen, but you run into issues that you just never expect being issues that you run into in food manufacturing, which can sometimes inhibit things.
Yeah. And is there any way of tracking like how many people, I suppose there isn't, but how many people consume those products who are part of the community, and then how many you're getting in front of like a brand new audience that's never come across the Deliciously Yellow brand before?
Yeah, we don't have that data explicitly, but I think we can make relatively decent guesses at things. So we know that we've been bought by about 3 million households in the UK in the last 6 months, and we can start to kind of extrapolate that through our community to understand what kind of levels roughly are buying.
And you've seen the community continue to grow. Did that grow exponentially during the pandemic, with people at home, people on social media, a lot more people listening to podcasts, a lot more, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it grew a bit. I think we've had a kind of steady build. I think one of the things that's really benefited our business is, other than in early 2015 when Delicious Yellow really had this kind of huge catapult from something that was, as I said, this niche online community that Ella had done this incredible job of building. When the first book came out, that was really the kind of the big moment for Delicious Yellow that gave it the springboard to where it is today. But beyond that, we haven't had moments where the business or the kind of brand has been too hot. I think it's just been a relatively nice just build up to where we are, and that's something that we've really tried to be as well. We want our business to have real staying power, and we feel like if the business is kind of too popular or too hot, then it's probably got the opportunity to go the other way, whereas if we can just build slowly and incrementally, we feel like that's a better way for the long term of building the brand.
And just because friends have done this recently as well with the business, with regards to the app, how long did it take you from ideation to actually onboarding people onto it? And
yeah, the app was a really big turning point in the business. So up until mid 2018, the old part of the Delicious Yellow business, which is really the content part of our business, was very much reliant upon other people paying us for stuff. So Ella would do brand ambassadorships for other brands, and we made a really clear decision in mid 2018, that we didn't want to do that anymore. We wanted to be an independent food company where we would only be talking about promoting the things that we are doing. And it was just a better business. It was something that we could then forecast, that would be recurring, that could build real value. And so obviously whenever Ella, if she would tag someone on social media, or if she would be paid to do an advertising campaign, it could be quite lucrative, and it's basically 100% margin of what you're getting there. And so in the early stages of building the business, it was really, really important revenue for us, but it felt like the business we had got to a point now where we were trying to do too much ourselves through all of these company controlled activities, our food products, etc., that it just didn't feel like that made sense anymore. So we had we had £150,000 left in the Delicious Yellow bank account, and we spent every single penny of it on our app, and our finance director looked at us like we were crazy at the time. And
Really?
we had concerns in the business about what this would mean, because the revenues that Ella was getting from some of the more personal stuff she was doing were really meaningful, but we're just absolutely certain that this was the change in model that we needed, and so we risked a lot at that point. And if it hadn't worked, it would have been a real concern. And we developed the app over about 4 months with our developers, and it came out, and we knew within about the first 10 days that this was the right thing to do, and the subscriber base immediately grew. We could see the levels of engagement that we were getting, and after we felt pretty sure after 10 days, after 4 months, we knew we could see that this was absolutely the right thing to have done, and it's been an amazing business to grow over the last 3 years.
I bet, because you often think, and I'm sure there's countless examples, but trying to move people from platform to platform doesn't always work. But I think you said like the Instagram channel is like a couple of million at the moment, and then you think how many people you can get to take an action by clicking on that link to then go and download the app and then sign up. So it must be fascinating looking at the data from that and then looking at how you can build that. Yeah,
it really is, and I think it's just I think it's a really nice way to build a business, is around community, to build up a group of people who are interested in the subject, whatever it is that you're talking about, and to understand what matters to those people, and then trying to find the ways that you can provide a good or service that is of real use to them. I think is just a really neat way of building a business.
Literally, I'm recording next week with someone who was a guest on the show, is now a really good friend of mine, Piers Linney, former Dragon's Den investor, and he's launching a new business called Moblocks, and he's building the community first, and he had on his board the guys who created GiftGaff, for example, which is a great example again of building that community, like the community are answering the questions that the new customers have got, that kind of thing. What do you think are some of the keys to building not just a community, but like an engaged community?
I think first of all, I think it's about complete consistency. I think people have to know what they're coming to you for. I think that if you are doing something where the content that you're doing is erratic or it isn't consistent, I think it's very difficult to build a community around that. I think that if you want to, I keep using this word useful, but I think it's a really important word in community. There is obviously, I think there must be millions and millions of Instagram accounts that people can follow, but which ones are actually useful to their life? I think particularly as people appear to be trying to spend slightly less time on their phones as well, how do you create content for them that isn't just a scroll for a scroll's sake, but is something that can actually add a level of value to their lives each day, is a big focus for us.
And from building a community, building a brand, to building a business, talk me through the decision that you both made to buy back full shareholding of the business yourselves from your investors.
So we had raised money in early 2017 from a group of investors, and like a lot of investors, I think they get to a point after kind of between 5 to 7 years where they want that investment back and out, and hopefully plus some. And we had got to a position where I think at that stage you have 3 options. You either have the option to sell the business and all shareholders to exit at that point. You have the option to effectively replace shareholders, so their shares to be bought out by someone else, or you have the opportunity, if you can, to buy them out. And we were fortunate because our business was profitable, so we were able to raise some bank debt to be able to buy them out. And so they own about 16% of the business, and we were able to buy out all of that. So we're 100% family-owned business again, which we're really proud of. And we feel like it's just the right fit for our brand.
And did you look at the other options that you just talked about then, like selling the business, replacing the investors? Did you look at every option, or again were you both pretty bullish on this is what you wanted to do and how can we take action and put this into?
Yeah, we absolutely did. I mean, I think that I really believe this, that I don't feel like I have a God-given right to run this company. I think that this business is an amazing, living, breathing thing in its own right, full of incredible people, and I believe that our business can do really great things for consumers as well. And I feel like it's always important that we remain open, that at some point there may be someone who could run this business much better than we can and can do things to fulfill the purpose of the company better than we can. And ultimately, when we were looking at that in mid-2021, we decided that wasn't the case. We are the best people to run this company, and who knows whether that'll be in 10 years, 50 years, if our girls want to come work in the business, whenever that is. But we believe that we're the right people to run the company and to fulfill the purpose and the mission of the company, and so we made that decision, and we love doing it. We really, really love doing it, and I feel like we're doing the right things by the company. I feel like there's a big difference when we first started working together and we just had a cafe. You kind of feel like you're working for yourself. I think now the company has really grown. We've got almost 50 employees, and kind of indirectly we have about another 50 to 80 people who effectively make our business, enable our business. I feel like we've got a deep responsibility to them as well, and so we take the longest term views we possibly can.
And so you moved on from, say, Ella's not behind the till at the restaurant, and you're not serving, waiting on the tables anymore. But you've been there and you've done that, and you know what it's like. Yeah,
I do. It's I'm very glad we're past that point. that was full on.
And did you look at any examples of people who'd done that previously? Because the one that springs to mind, just because he's an ex-boss of mine, Richard Branson, which I worked for Virgin for nearly 20 years, but always remember him going after floating the business, I think, and then going back and buying that back and taking it private again, and it was like a huge, this is probably about 20 years ago now, something like that. But did you look to any particular examples? Or
I mean, no, I definitely, my mum actually used to say this. She said when she was working in the health service, she said, you've got to go and smell the babies. You can't just sit here and advise people in a hospital how to act and how to look after babies if you're not willing to go do some of the difficult stuff yourself. You have to go live and breathe this. And I still believe in our business today. I would never ask someone to do in our business what I'm not prepared to do myself. So it's important that if needs be, I step in and wash the dishes if that needs to be done. And it's important that I'm also willing to stand up and communicate our business to a lot of people on a big platform if that's the right thing for us to do. And so I feel like you always need to have that lens, and I think that being able to have gone on this journey from the absolute beginnings of this to where we are today really empowers us. I think it keeps us incredibly humble for how difficult it is, and how quickly, if you get things wrong or you take your eye off the ball, it can go the opposite way. And I think it's that sense of appreciation that really keeps us going and keeps us, I hope anyway, incredibly humble in the decisions we make.
And as you reach a 10-year anniversary, how do you plan to scale and grow the business moving forwards? Because I've read you got some pretty ambitious plans. We have. I mean, we've definitely been slowed down by COVID the last 2 years. It was much more about just kind of managing our way through COVID. But it wasn't such a huge growth environment, but our business is already just in the last few months has started to grow really, really fast again. And we've got lots of international launches planned. I think we really want to stay within the same business activities that we're in. We've historically in our business, we've launched some kind of new business every 2 years or so. I think that the structure of our business at the moment being our food products being one business, our restaurant being a second business, our subscription business being our third business, I think we're really happy with those businesses. I've got a couple of ideas floating around of things that I would potentially like for us to get involved in at some point, but I think that what we would most like to do is just take those three things and do them on much, much, much larger scale. And then within the kind of fourth part of our business, which is the bit that Ella really solely controls, which is our podcast and books, I think it's just to continue to evolve those, to grow those, to publish more, hopefully really useful, great content in those. Have you, and this is just me because again part of my business is events, but have you looked at things like festival events? You must have looked at
yeah, we have. We have. I think that we looked at it a while ago. It didn't feel like it was something that we were ready for at the time, and I think it was something where doing one big, great one-off event is, I think what we're trying to do with our business is try and find things that we can do. If we can make a food product once really well down the line, how can we make it then 50 million times well down the line? And so having the ability to replicate those things is the model that we've been more focused on.
And as CEO, what brands, what leaders do you look to and think, oh, I would like us to be, in the next 10 years like this, be that I don't know, a Nike or whoever it might be, Apple or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, so when we started our brand and I really started to think about brands in more detail, the brands that I thought and I hoped that we would one day be able to become, but with the brands that it felt like I had an emotional connection to. And Nike's actually absolutely one of those. I've always felt like they've been able to maintain this status of being really cool, but never too cool. They've just been really relevant the whole time for the time that they've been operating in. So Nike is a brand I admire a huge amount.
Have you read Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite books.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's a really, really good book, yeah.
And then, personally, you work alongside your wife Ella, building up, multi-million-pound business. You got 2 little girls, I believe, as you said earlier. What do you do to decompress personally?
Gosh, there's not much time for it. I do actually. I have an incredibly understanding wife, so I play golf every Saturday morning. So I play really early. I tee off at 7:30, and I'm home by 11, which is great because it means I get the rest of the weekend for the girls or for the business, which is often needed. So I play golf, which is definitely my big switch off, and I absolutely love it. And I think Ella's realised how important it is for me as well, just to have a bit of headspace each week. But my life really now is my little girls, Ella, and all of the work, and we get to work with the most incredible people in our business. I feel so lucky to come into work each day and work with such special people, and between those two things, I feel like we've got a full life.
Sounds amazing. And yeah, I'm a big golf fan. I've just gotten back into it courtesy of the pandemic. I think when the golf courses opened again, and we literally, myself and 2 of my best friends, we take Friday afternoons off now from only from say 2 o'clock. We tee off at 2 o'clock, but the way that now spring is getting lighter again, it just feels nice, and it's just the best feeling, even if you play rubbish, you hit one decent shot out of 80 odd, it'll make you come back again, won't it?
Yeah, it's a special game. I love it.
Yeah, and just to finish up, Matt, would you recommend going into business with your wife? Is it for everybody?
Yeah, I think that you have to have huge levels of kind of mutual understanding for one another. I think that you have to be able to, I think communication is hugely key. I think that I wouldn't recommend it if you both had the same skill sets, you were both trying to do the same things. But I think if you have 2 different skill sets that can complement one another, I think that it can be the most rewarding, best thing in the world. It's undoubtedly made us closer by doing this versus in any sense pulling us apart. So, but I think that's been because we've done very different things.
Well, it's the brand certainly permeated my subconscious from my wife walking around with the ubiquitous sweatshirt on, to recipe books, and now food products as well. So big fan of the brand, and excited to see what you do over the next 10 years. So it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of Screw It, Just Do It. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below this video. Has this episode helped move you closer to where you want to be? All that I ask is that if you enjoyed this episode and that it's moved you closer to getting to where you want to be, that you share this episode so that it helps one other person do just the same. Just ask yourself, what small action will move you forward to get you from where you are? Then screw it and just do it. Until next time.